Welcome to KneeToKnee. I'm your host, Mark Marrott. In today's world, most men are pretty good at keeping it together when the stakes are high. Their job, their finances, those big decisions. But in the closest relationships with the people that matter most, sometimes something else happens. Defensiveness shows up, old wounds surface, and trust, once it cracks, is hard to know how to rebuild it. Today on KneeToKnee, I'm sitting down with Kathy Kinghorn, the founder of Therapy Utah, a clinic she built from scratch based on one simple question: what would a therapy practice look like if it actually got it right? Today, we're going to cover betrayal trauma and what it really is and how it's different from the everyday friction of two people with completely different belief systems trying to build a life together. We get into why men become defensive with the people they love most and a therapy model called internal family systems that gives you a practical, shame-free language for your own emotional reactions. And Kathy closes with a challenge that, on one hand, sounded a little bit ridiculous to me at first, but it is genuinely brilliant. And I'm actually going to give this a try this week. This episode is all about mindset and relationships, and it earns that spot for us. So let's get KneeToKnee with Kathy Kinghorn. I'm excited about today's episode. We are privileged to have sitting KneeToKnee with us today is Kathy Kinghorn. Kathy, welcome. We're super excited to have you.
It's so great for the invite, Mark. I really appreciate it.
Yeah. I mean, everybody knows, get an idea. Her son, Jeff, and I have known each other for years, and he kept telling me for a while, you have to have Kathy on. You've got to have my mom on. He's a big Kathy fan. So tell us a little bit about Therapy Utah. Tell us, give me a little history back there beyond what we just kind of went through real quick.
Therapy Utah really believes in looking at things from a trauma lens. And so actually, Mark, one of the backstories to this clinic is by the time I decided, hey, should we build something? My partner at the time and I just went, all right, what do we not like about other places we've seen, other places we've heard about through the grapevine? And we just wrote on the whiteboard, what would we not have at our clinic? And we did this list and we said, I think we could build a clinic that doesn't have any of that. And so that was our main goal, to have not just highly trained therapists, but trainings every week. We have 5 hours of training every week for our team.
Wow.
And they're top of the deck, but they're really passionate about being generous with their knowledge, with each other, with their clients. And I think that we have a different culture here of generosity and curiosity.
That's cool. Yeah, I think you can always take a look at a list. I love that you whiteboarded it and said, what don't we want? Oh, we could do that. We can avoid all those things. So, in the lens of building and deepening our connections, obviously trauma happens and it can happen in a relationship. It can happen even whether it's physical or, injuries, but also just the trauma to the relationship. Talk to me a little bit, to us, I should say, a little bit about betrayal trauma and what that is, and then how to build that path back to trust when you're committed to staying in those relationships.
Think about it this way, Mark. We cannot be betrayed until we trust. We have to trust first to be betrayed. And so betrayal trauma is this unique trauma that said, once trusted. I once trusted this system, this person, this culture. What is happening right now? And betrayal trauma is when somebody that you have had a history, who knows how long, but some point in the history there was trust and it was betrayed.
Right. And a myriad of reasons why, right?
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Right. And betrayal is different than, hey, I'm learning and I'm growing and I made this mistake and I'm genuinely sorry. Like in relationships, there are absolutely times we just do not see the other person. We don't hear the other person. Maybe we're just really bugged at them and we can't even nail down why. And then that other person shows up and they're defensive and it just all goes, it's a train wreck, right? And that's just life. That happens. And if we have the emotional maturity, we can say, yeah, they are having a bad day and I may be able to step away and we're going to regroup tomorrow. and that's just about getting to know, sometimes I think Canada marries like Russia, and then we go, so let's see how that works. Because the Canadian rules are very different than Russian rules, right? And you get
Right.
these two cultures together from family stories, and you go, what are you doing? Like my husband and I always joke that the only thing we have in common is we have both said, what were you thinking? I mean, other than that,
Yeah.
definitely our background, our childhood was so markedly different that, we were two different cultures that smashed up against each other.
The only thing you have in common is what were you doing?
What were you thinking? Yeah, and
Oh, what were you
frequently
thinking? Yeah,
it's
okay.
asked. Like just the other day,
Yeah.
I'm sitting by him on the couch, and he says, "You got to look at this video." And it's a snake, and they put a rat in the cage, and the snake starts eating the rat. And I was like, "What were you thinking that I would want to see that? What went through your mind that you said I got to show Kathy this?"
You know what? Kathy would like this.
Right? And he's looking, he's sitting there confused. I'm confused. It's like, honestly, I don't want to see snakes eating rat videos, okay? I didn't ever think I'd have to say that out loud, but I'm saying it out loud now.
That it was not a sentence I had formed in my head that was gonna come out of my mouth.
Yeah. Yep. Yep.
You
Yeah.
know, I mean, a lot of that sounds like early on when you were talking about that, you having that trust and, someone walks in a room and they're feeling defensive and it just escalates along there. What crosses my mind is, I have a couple of books. I have one book that I've read every year now. This is my 18th year in
Wow.
January. And it's an Arbinger Institute book called Leadership and Self-Deception.
Oh, I love that book. I love that
Yeah,
book.
and those are some of the principles that you're talking about, right? Because we sense that and feel that off the other, even though I might say I'm fine or
Hmm.
whatever, right?
Hmm.
We feel that energy, and so sometimes that just helps escalate those things in that process and to create that defensiveness, and we're each in our own corners.
Right. And think about it, Mark. We only defend under one situation if there's an enemy in the room. That's it. We're not
Yeah,
defensive if there's no enemy. And so if you can kind of back into it and you think, let's say you're getting defensive and you think, where's the enemy? Is it
that's a
is it
good
inside of
question.
me, or am I thinking that they're how did that person turn into the enemy? And if you can take a step back, it can prevent a lot of conversations that don't need to happen, right? Because you can step back and
Yeah,
go, "Oh, hey, for whatever reason, hun, I feel really defended right now. I need to take a time out because you're not the enemy."
right. And most of the time, the other person in the room, spouse-wise or whatever, it definitely is not the enemy. If anything, they're trying to do all they can to help. That's what we try and do for each other, is help each other.
Yeah.
And I know there's times that with my wife, Victoria, early on in our marriage, I was so independent that when she would say, "Hey, I think this," and I remember feeling really that agitated, defensive. And after a while, I had to just tell myself, she wants to help. She's trying to help me be better. And we've had conversations over the years, honey, I know you just want me to be as good as I can be. So I'm listening. Right. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
that took some practice because the
Yeah.
independent side of me was like, no, 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 I got this.
Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's just hard to figure out, and a lot of times we've been trained to not show emotions, not show what we're really feeling. I had a colleague when I was in the corporate world. Came to America from India when she was 27. I said, "What's the biggest difference?" I mean, those cultures are so vastly different.
Yeah.
And I was just waiting, and she said, "In America, people ask, 'How are you?' and they don't want to know." And I was like, "Well, yeah, I mean, who does wanna know?" Like, of course, do you wanna know in India? Is that a thing, And it was like it was so interesting to me that out of all the vastly different things, the
That's what she
connection
picked up on.
between each other is what she picked up
Yeah.
on that was absent.
And that is so interesting. I mean, especially since we're talking about connections, right?
Mhm.
And we're trying to figure that out and help deepen those connections, to have it be you don't care when someone says, "How are you today?" Because that is a long high.
Yep. Yeah. In fact, most of us walk around, "Please just say good, please, I'm begging you. Don't go," But
La
it's
la la
so
la.
yeah, yeah, it's like I was just in Mexico on a humanitarian thing, and one of the, women that we met there, after a few days of working with all of these American women, she said, "Americans place a high value on efficiency." And It was true. I don't usually get into the world where I'm with a lot of women, you know, for a lot of different reasons, but they're efficient. I mean, they start a process and it's go time and you better be. And I thought, we do overrate efficiency. And a lot of times in our conversations, like we're trying to connect with somebody, and if one of the individuals is like, I just need to unwind, I just need to sit back and relax. And the other one's more, let's be efficient here. What's going on? And how do we stop or start, keep it going? It's like,
While you're sitting there relaxing, let me talk to you
yes, yeah, yeah,
because we have things we've got to get done. And I'm so guilty of that. I'm like, oh
yeah, yeah,
my
yeah.
gosh. Right. But I can see that, there's so many times, to slow down, to take a breath, to really be present and connect. And I know our listeners have heard me say stuff like that before. And even our past guests are like, just take a breath.
Right. And just consider, is hurry helping or hurting this situation? Like you can have a great morning and you could say, yeah, hun, we're going to go to meet up with these friends. And then all of a sudden your relationship with time is, we've got to leave now. And your partner's like, we'll get there. And so that hurry takes like a really great moment of connection and it turns it into this tense situation, and the person that's trying to be efficient and stick to a schedule is going, why are you doing this to us? And the other person's going, why are you doing this to us?
So yeah, I'm only laughing because this is like a conversation my wife and I have all the time. I get up early in the morning, and in the process of that, I've been up for hours, and I
Hmm.
get up really early before she gets up. And then, once she gets up and she starts getting going, I've already had my to-do list going. I'm like, okay, we got
Yes.
to do this and this and this. And she looks at me and she goes, slow down.
Yeah.
We've had this. This is a weekly Saturday morning conversation in our home, I think, because I've been up for hours. It's like, look at all I've got done so far. And she's like, all right, Energizer Bunny,
Yeah.
just relax.
Yeah. Yeah. My husband and I hadn't been married too long, and we were doing yard work like couples do. And I walked in the house and he was laying in bed watching golf midday. I had never seen somebody just lay down in the middle of a project. And so I backed out of the room just in shock. And what did I do? Oh, I doubled down on the yard work so that he could see what a hardworking person does. Like he was going to see this and snap out of whatever craziness he was into. He
That
came out.
helped.
Yeah. Oh, tons. Yeah. 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 And then he came out and he just started working and he taught me the value of breaks. Take a break. And I had never seen that. So it was not part of my belief system. And it was really interesting when I finally, and it was not that day or that week, unpacked what my belief was around hard work. And when you get in a coupleship, if you can just unpack those beliefs and go, what does a hardworking person look like? Well, now I can honestly say somebody that knows when to recharge by taking a break, somebody that works at
Yes.
their rhythm, not yours, that's a hardworking person. And it really, it allows that belief to match up far better with your values.
Right. No, I love that. I love that. I think it's so important to have that understanding, so that you can line those values up.
Right. And you've got to just go, what's the story going on in my head? And do I want this story? Or do I want to go, you
Yeah.
know what? Here's a new chapter. And yeah, that was absolutely part of my story. I get that. But what does this chapter say about my story? You know?
Yeah. I'm in a relationship. I've turned the page. Now where are we at? Yeah.
Yeah. And I think we can learn a lot more from each other than we give each other credit for. Like I have learned a ton about how an extrovert moves in the world from my husband. He moves so differently than me and I've watched it and observed and I've learned some skills because I'm with somebody that is so dramatically different than me.
So he's the extrovert in your relationship?
Yes. Yes. I think he's on steroids extrovert, but that's just an introvert's opinion.
Okay. We all know some of those. We definitely know some of those. And then with my wife and I'm probably and definitely more of an extrovert, but I'm very much still an introvert, which is funny. We talk about that often where, why am I doing a podcast if I'm an introvert? But there's so much that we can gain from each other's perspectives. And
Mhm.
he can gain from your husband can gain from the introvert's perspective. And we're going to be talking about that here in an upcoming episode where we talk about that relationship and introverts. So that's really kind of a nice segue, Kathy.
Yeah, yeah, nice. Yeah,
And
there's
so,
just a synergy to having those differences, there really is. We just have to check in with the unconscious stuff going on. Like, what's my belief? Like, I didn't even know I held that belief until somebody held a different belief about hard work, you know? So it
yeah,
just
that
helps
could
to
be,
unpackage it.
and it's that looking at it from that other person's through their eyes. And we've heard
Uh-huh.
that a million times in our lives, walk in somebody else's shoes, all the cliches that we kind of throw in that anymore. But there's
Yeah.
reality to that.
Yes, yes, for sure, for sure.
Yeah.
I mean, we stay in a place of curiosity. Curiosity is a luxury for our brain. We have to have enough energy to get curious. Because if we don't have enough energy, our brain goes to, look, I'm just trying to breathe here. Curiosity will go quickly out the window if you're not in a healthy place, if you're not able to take a break or to say no or hold a boundary or
Yeah.
anything, then you're gonna deplete your energy. And then right when you likely need curiosity about your partner the most is when your brain goes, no, I have no energy for this. And then you
Good.
miss opportunities. Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah. And that kind of leads into that kind of next one of those topics that I shared with you earlier that I'd love to be able to visit a little about. And that was the internal family systems and self-compassion. Tell us a little bit about that. That's something that I've done a little research on, but I would love to hear more from you.
Internal family systems it's what's called a trauma informed model, Mark. So when it's trauma informed, it means it takes into account the trauma that we've experienced in life and it looks through that lens. And so internal family systems doesn't shame individuals. It's parts work, basically. Like, I have a part that likes to hike. I have a part that likes to
Okay.
sit and read. And I have a part that likes to be that has a hard time engaging in conversation when I'm in a big group of people. And so we have all these different parts and they all have to be welcome. We have to get to know them. Like, if you said to your wife, Mark, like, there's a part of me that right now feels way hurt over what you did. And my hurt is so out of proportion to what happened. But that part just keeps showing up with hurt that feels way too big. That can help
Yeah.
remind you, hey, this is just a part of me. There's another part of me that's taking the logical side and going, look, this is not about your wife. This is about something that happened somewhere else, right? And so internal family system is basically getting to know all these different parts of us and finding space to welcome them in.
Yeah. My brain's just spinning,
I know.
start going, okay, wait a second. I, so I can tell the people I work with, okay, we're going to fire hose you for a minute with information, right? and this is 100% my own fault because I said, okay, we've got 20 minutes.
Yeah, I know.
So I recognize this is something of my own making.
Yeah, you started this, buddy.
I did, definitely, definitely. I think it's so important that we do get to know those different parts and to be able to see that. And if both a husband and wife, even if you're dealing with kids as well, but I'll talk husband and wife because I'm an empty nester. But when we take a look at that and say, if we both are working to understand those parts, then that obviously opens things up that we can have some communication along those lines, which deepens our connections with this person that we've chosen to be with.
Right. And we talk about parts a lot, right? There's a part of me that wants to go out to dinner tonight, and there's a part of me that wants to stay home. So it's kind of embedded in our language if we pay attention to it.
Yeah. Yeah.
I
It's
mean,
so
just
true.
think about creating this podcast, Mark. There was a part of you that goes, I'm in. This is going to be awesome. And there's a part of you that's going, I don't know, will it work? And
We spent over a year debating this. So absolutely, where you're just like, "Are we gonna do it? We're gonna do it," until I finally just said, "You know what? We're in," and I went up to my office and recorded. But it's that same kind of thing. There's that two sides of the coin, and you have to decide which one you're gonna focus your attention on.
right, right. And if one shows up and it's like, maybe there's a lot of anger, right? There's a part that's really angry over a situation. And truly, just a very simple, easy tool to use is just kind of, you can close your eyes or you can leave them open and just imagine asking that part, can you just step back or soften up a little bit? Watch me handle this. And you can stick around, but just soften up a little bit. Those parts I find will step back or soften up. And then you can show up more with self energy, you know?
Yeah, and in the process of that, if you can get that part that I'm just guessing, right? I'm not a therapist, nor do I play one on TV, right? But I would think in the process of that, as you get that part to step back, then that part of your brain, your emotion, your psychology, whatever, can then start to learn how another way to handle it instead of that reactionary emotional. So you increase that reaction time. What did Stephen R. Covey call it? Oh my gosh, the time between stimulus and reaction, right? You're able to increase that time and actually be able to have a good conversation without reacting to that
Yeah,
conversation.
I love Rollo May's take on that. Real freedom is the ability to pause between stimulus and response, and in that pause, choose. And if we
Yes,
have the ability to pause and go, all right, there is a part of me that is lit right now, and there's a part of me that is going to, that part doesn't need to overwhelm us. So kind of like what you said, Mark, knowing that the part of you is willing to step back, it signals to your brain, hey, you're not going to get overwhelmed in this moment.
right.
And then you really can move differently with the other person.
Oh, I love that. So, well, Kathy, we could talk for a long time. I think you and I'm loving our conversation. We're coming to that end time for us for today's
Wow, that was so
episode.
quick.
It was so fast, I know. So I'm going to end it just like we do all of our episodes. Is what is one thing that someone can do today to build deeper and more meaningful connections with those people around?
Mark, what a great question. All right, I'm going to I'll give out one that might sound crazy. All right. I mean, let's end on
Okay,
crazy. Let's do that.
let's go for it.
Find something that you can fail at together, something that there's no skin in the game, like stargazing, calligraphy, lighting a fire with flint and steel, doesn't matter. Allow yourself with somebody else to fail and notice, what does that say? If you never learn where the stars are, you're still going to be an okay human, you know?
Right.
If you never learn calligraphy, it's okay. So for sure, pick something that the outcome is entirely irrelevant to your life. And once you do that, notice how it feels to feel like, is somebody going, let's say it's flint and steel and you're trying to light a fire. Is somebody like, no, you've got to do it this way, or let's read the instructions on the box, or, you know, it's like, whoa, whoa, whoa. Remember, we were so confident we were going to fail. That's why we chose this task. So, you know, let's just breathe through this. It can just allow you to notice how you show up with failure, because think about it, how we learn is failing. You
Yes.
know, I hope my kids and myself, I hope we fail till the end of our days, because that means we're learning and growing. But a lot of
Yeah.
times couples it gets a little sticky when they have an unhealthy belief around failure, you know? And
Yeah.
so just try something that you can fail at together and see what happens.
I'm gonna I'm gonna do it. I'm gonna do it. We'll
Well, now
find
you're going
something
to
we
have to
can fail
report out
together.
on it.
And yes, and then I've got to report on them. This is why I love that. What's the one thing we can do today? Because man, I do them, and sometimes you're like, "That was awesome," and other times, yeah, I got some work to do.
I mean, you did
So
say you were going on a trip. You could use an old-fashioned map, and you'll probably fail at that.
it's possible. It's possible. So, well, Kathy, thank you so much, so much for coming on with us today. I appreciate you taking a few minutes and sharing some of your knowledge and your expertise with us. We'll make certain that we put down in the show notes a link to Therapy Utah. So if anybody wants to get a hold of Kathy or her team, they have that ability to do that and reach right out to you folks for anything that they might need. So thank you again, Kathy. We so appreciate you, and thanks for coming on.
Thanks for
Appreciate
having
it.
me.
And for all of you that are tuning in, thank you for spending a few minutes with us today. And we will catch you on the next go around of KneeToKnee. Thanks.